This whole debate was a big mess, and I think Ron DeSantis has a perfect metaphor as he talks about with this visual aid here. I'll let him explain.
He needs it.
This is a map of San Francisco. There's a lot of plots on that. You may be asking, what is that plotting? Well, this is an app where they plot the human feces that are found on the streets of San Francisco. And you see.
So he's making a point here. You might say it's valid, but this whole debate was such a spectacle. I don't think there were any clear winners. But nonetheless, I wanted to just kind of like analyze and break down some of the key things that I noticed throughout this whole thing. So let's take a look. The first thing I noticed was how often and frustrating it was that they talked over each other and how difficult it is to have a legitimate, productive conversation when the whole thing sounds like this.
Do you think he's up to the job?
Yeah.
You think he's 100%?
I've been spending
100%?
plenty of time with Joe
100%?
Biden in
Okay.
private and
Let him
public.
answer.
So they're not really listening to each other. They're just performing for the audience. And it's really hard to like get a deeper understanding of the issues and where each person stands when they're just talking over each other like that throughout the whole thing. It feels a little bit childish. The other thing that was kind of interesting, of course, this was hosted on Fox News with Sean Hannity. He admitted that at the beginning that he's a conservative, but he's going to try to stay neutral, which he did at some points in the debate. But a lot of the questions were pretty loaded and leading, favoring Ron DeSantis, and that perspective sounding something like this.
Wait, let's look at the issue of crime. FBI numbers, violent crime nationally for each of your states. Keep in mind, this statistic shows what is the combined rate of homicide, rape, robbery, aggravated assault, the year 2022. On the national level, the rate was 380.7 offenses per 100,000 people. In California, meanwhile, the rate was much higher, 499.5 offenses per 100,000. In Florida,
so
lower,
you kind of get the idea. The
258.9
idea
offenses
here
per
that just a lot of the statistics and the questions that were asked were framed in a way that like highlighted an area that Florida was leading over California, and Gavin Newsom was at a clear disadvantage in those questions. So in that sense, Sean Hannity was kind of like providing Ron DeSantis with some layups throughout this whole debate. So DeSantis definitely had the advantage, and he showed that in his responses because it's really hard to make an argument against the increase in crime in California. So Gavin Newsom tried his best to equivocate and kind of like avoid the answers in a lot of these kinds of questions. So from that point of view, he was at a disadvantage throughout a lot of this debate. And he did resort to a lot of personal character attacks. We call those ad hominem attacks, as you could see here in this
Florida
next clip.
State Governor, you're trolling folks and trying to find migrants to play political games to try to get some news and attention so you can out-Trump Trump. And by the way, how's that going for you, Ron? You're down 41 points in your own home state. On the issue of immigration, Joe Biden put a $14 billion immigration package up in front of Congress, 2,300.
So Gavin Newsom took pretty much every chance he could to dig and kind of like jab Ron DeSantis on a lot of different points like this. So I just found that kind of an interesting part of this whole debate here. But overall, in total, Gavin Newsom, he does seem a little bit more stylistic, and he does kind of have a little bit more charisma when he speaks. He's got that kind of presidential style of speaking and whole look and demeanor and attitude. He seems to keep his calm a little bit better under pressure. So you can kind of just see him talking in this kind of a clip here where he just sounds a little more polished.
Innovation, more scientists, more researchers, more engineers, more Nobel laureates in the state of California than any other state in the nation, the finest system of higher education. It's the birthplace of life science and biotech and nanotechnology. We dominate in green tech. We dominate in high tech. We dominate in artificial intelligence. So with respect, I think it's an interesting campaign strategy for Ron DeSantis to be bashing a state of 40 million Americans.
And just to contrast that, you can kind of see Ron DeSantis, he doesn't really have that same kind of charisma. So he did do better, I think, in terms of the substance of the debate. The questions were to his advantage, and he did have responses that I think cater to his target audience pretty well. But just look at him when he talks. He just seems really stiff and kind of awkward and not as animated, and just he seems a little bit more uncomfortable on the stage.
Just because of their policies. That's why people are paying more there.
So
what Gavin Newsom wants to do, what he's doing in California, what Biden wants to do nationally is government-dictated green energy policies. They want to kneecap fossil fuels and reliable energy. We've already seen what's happened in California. They have rolling blackouts. He actually implemented a mandate to buy electric vehicles. So pretty soon in California, you're not going to be able to buy a normal car, only electric vehicles.
So in the end, I'd say that Gavin Newsom succeeded in showing a little bit of style throughout this debate, but Ron DeSantis had the substance on his side here. But there wasn't any clear winners. This was a really awkward debate. I was kind of bored and saddened and surprised that this whole thing even happened in the first place. But what do you think? Who do you think won this debate? Let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you next time.